So I've started it, but there's a bit of a delay. So hang on 1 second for me.
All right.
Okay, and we've started. So you're good to go.
Thank you. We're going to start, and good morning, everyone, this beautiful morning. And I would like to call the BIA Advisory Committee meeting to order. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. As well, a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during the committee meetings. I will do a roll call. I will, please indicate your presence. Jennifer Martin. Rachel Braithwaite.
Here.
Christine Geisler.
Here.
Carrie Jarvie.
Here.
Lisa Anderson. Susie Berthwaite.
Here.
Michael Sabin. Heidi Vanderkwart. Bender Chuck. Maggie Burns. Susan Penny.
Here.
Thank you. Tracy McKinnon.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, changes to the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair, there are no changes to the agenda.
May I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as presented?
So Susie move, Christina second.
Thank you. Is there anyone opposed?
No, I don't see anyone.
Okay, carried and carried. Okay, declaration of interest. Are there any declaration of interest?
I don't see anyone, Councillor.
Thank you. We'll move on. Approval of the minutes of previous meeting. May I have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes of October 13, 2020 as presented?
I see Rachel and a seconder.
Thank you. Anybody
Perfect,
opposed?
Susan.
Okay, and it's carried. Okay, we're going to have a staff presentation and we're looking forward to this. Economic development. I want to welcome Norm. Now, I don't know how to, that name, Shell Hahn, Director of Economic Development. He's here to update. Welcome, Norm, and thank you for coming.
And thank you very much, Councillor, and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me today. It's great to see all of you, albeit virtually. And first off, I would just like to start off by thanking you for your hard work, dedication, efforts throughout this year. Small business and our BIAs have always been the foundation of the economy in Hamilton. And through 2020, that has certainly been no different. You've all had to pivot and realign your plans to guide your members through these unprecedented times, and we thank you. This has been a year of transition for all of us, myself included. So I've known some of you for quite a few years, but I have been with the City of Hamilton for nearly 30 years, but Director of Economic Development since only March the 2nd. So I was in my new role for almost or just shy of 2 weeks when I had to uproot my staff to work from home and deal with what we've all been dealing with for the last 8 months. So some people joke around and say it's the new norm in more ways than one. But anyway, that's a little bad COVID humor there. I'm sorry. But our team has had to pivot and change our plans and shift our priorities to still offer service and support all of our partners and clients. For those of you that aren't familiar with the structure of the Economic Development Division, I have 4 sections that I oversee. One being our corporate real estate section that takes care of the acquisition and disposition of city-owned properties. We have our municipal land office, which heads up major projects with respect to affordable housing, as well as what you're seeing going on at Pier 8, 6, and 7. We have our business investment and sector development group, which looks after a lot of the larger scale developments of the business parks and the foreign direct investment piece of the economy. And of course, our commercial districts and small business section that you all know very well through your work with led by Judy Lamb and of course Julia Davis on the VIA front. So just to reiterate what I said earlier, thank you very much for your dedication and commitment to make Hamilton the vibrant city that it is, and for what you've been doing and continue to do through these very difficult times. You've worked with your boards to support your memberships. There's been a shift to virtual engagement, contesting, and a focus on shopping safely, while at the same time promoting and supporting city-run initiatives that have been implemented over the last 8 months. You've been involved with enhancing the presence of your members on the hometown hub right out of the gate. I remember that quite vividly in terms of meetings happened immediately right after COVID hit. We were one of the first communities basically to jump into that fray and start to offer online services and an online portal basically for those businesses to get their services known. The outdoor dining districts, and kudos to Julia Davis and what she's done with over 168 restaurants, most of those being in the BIA areas, I do believe, the wide majority. You've had a seat at the Mayor's Economic Recovery Task Force and provided direct input into the action items that are going to be released shortly. And your leadership, engagement, and passion has helped move Hamilton through this pandemic. We will continue to work with you. I know that we've gone from weekly meetings now to our basic standard monthly subcommittee meetings. So I'm really glad that I've had the opportunity to address you today here to talk about meet you all sort of semi-formally. Again, I would much rather do this in person. And to that end, I was going to end with this, but I'm going to mention it right now, is that I'm going to offer up basically that when my first events that I had with when I got into my new role as director was actually attending a downtown BIA event. It was a 33 Bowen, and it was to declare the winner of the free rent for a year contest. And at that meeting, I had a conversation with Carrie that I wanted to basically get out and do a 13 BIAs and 13-day tour of the downtown, of the downtown BIAs, all the BIAs across the city. And you know what? That sort of went to the side once COVID hit. But I'm going to offer that up now in terms of that. If anyone on this call is interested in having me come out and walk your BIA with you to learn from your members what's going on right now, what their concerns and issues are right now, I'm offering that up, and I will make the time over the next. I'm not sure if we'll be able to do it 13 days in a row, but I certainly would like to get out and find out what are the most pressing issues to you ever hear it firsthand from the street. There's only so much surveying that we can do, and so much stuff that we can hear in the news, but you have to hear this stuff firsthand. So I'm going to put that out as an offer at this point in time. If anyone wants to take me up on that, please let me know, and I will make those arrangements. And of course, it'll be a socially distanced walking tour. Nothing inside, but we'll mask up and we'll go around and we'll learn firsthand from the merchants and all the tenants within your jurisdiction. So I just wanted to put that out there because I think that's very important, especially with everything that's happening right now as we enter into the Christmas season or the holiday season. I want to encourage you all to continue to share our programs with your memberships, and which are intended to help them navigate through these uncertain times. I know that you've met with Keith Russell with respect to, or he's presented to your meeting last month to talk about the Digital Main Street Transformation Grant. And just to recall, it's a free $2,500 grant, and applications are open to the end of November to support your businesses and to increase their digital profile. We're going to continue to work with you every day so that you can successfully promote your areas and your members. And I'd like to thank you for your participation and feedback on surveys. You were a huge part of the survey that we put out early on in the COVID crisis back in April. Just as an FYI, we intend on doing one of those check-in point surveys once again, probably very early in the new year. I think there's a bit of survey fatigue out there right now. I think we're all getting bombarded with how it's impacted here, but I think let's get through the holiday season, and we will figure out where that survey will land. We also have a couple of other pretty major initiatives that are going on in the midst of all that's happening right now. We have our 5-year Economic Development Action Plan, which we just completed some community engagement on. And Graham Brown will be giving a very eloquent presentation on that in just about probably 10 or 15 minutes after I stop speaking. And of course, Phil Caldwell is leading the charge on our community improvement plan, our 5-year review, which obviously will have an impact because this talks about a lot of the incentives that are related to the areas in which you oversee. So that is really all I have to say from a formal presentation piece. I mean, this is more of just my way of coming out and saying hello, and I'm sorry we haven't been able to do this sooner by any means. I know, like I said before, I've talked to many of you individually, but not as a large group. So it's great to see you all together again. I don't want to be a stranger to this committee, and please, I would love to come back and present again if there's anything else that's required. You know what? I look forward to everything. I look forward to working through everything that's going on together, because we're not going to make this all on our own. So let's talk about how we can even work more cohesively. So that's all I really have for now. So if you have any questions, please ask, and I'll do my best to answer. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Norm. And I'm sure there'll be some questions. So is there anyone that would like to ask any question to Norm?
Oh, Rachel has a question, Councillor.
Rachel?
I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to come and meet. I know things are definitely not the normal right now, but thank you. It means a lot for you coming to meet with us virtually and share your opinions that I think most of us would completely agree that independent commercial businesses are the backbone of Hamilton's economy for sure. And they've really had to pivot this year tremendously. So much so that I've been so amazed by the strength and resiliency of our Hamilton entrepreneurs. So thank you for, not just your words, but also your actions. And we really appreciate that. And I will be emailing you for a walking tour.
So, and thank you, Rachel. Appreciate those comments as well. And I don't say small business really. If you look at the numbers and the stats, small businesses do make up over 95% of what our economy is. So it's sometimes those big stories like an Amazon landing or an L3 Harris seem to make news in the papers or whatever else. But it's really these small businesses that are driving our economy, and we really have to make sure we're taking care of them. And we do have limited resources and whatnot, but again, I think through collaboration and working together, we can get through a lot of these together. But anyway, appreciate your comments. Thank you.
And Tracy has a question, Councillor.
Okay, Tracy.
Thank you. Hi, Norm. I haven't met you. I'm new to this board in town, and I'm just trying to figure things out. And first of all, like Rachel said, thank you for coming to speak with us and your support. I was kind of hanging on your last words where you'd like to find out how we could work more cohesively together, which is great to hear. So again, I'm new, so I'm just trying to figure out this committee and how everything works. So excuse my ignorance. But I'm just wondering, so we're trying to, in our group here, trying to do more work together, especially during COVID. Everybody recognizes the need to work together. And it was great that you started Hometown Hub, but it's I haven't really heard much about it the last several months, and it was actually really odd that we had to fight just to get the word Hamilton on the front page, which I found odd, and I also found it odd that the BIs, we weren't really approached for any input. So I hope more of that will change. And then I attended that meeting for these grants. You guys update every 5 years, which is great. But again, I find it odd when it's such a BI-based grant, which we're quite grateful for all those grants, that the BI is sort of not at the table. We're just sort of adding a passing comment, and that's sort of about it. So I just find that odd. And I understand previously, 5 years ago, that the BIs were consulted more. So I'm just wondering why that change is. And then one more thing is, again, because we're all kind of scrambling, trying to market together, and we had a campaign in the summer to shop local, get more residents to be local tourists in their own town. And we went to RTO3, which is the provincial body, and got some funding. And then when I sought support from Tourism Hamilton, they said, oh, they're already working on something with economic development, and which is great, but I'm kind of wondering, oh, where were the BIAs, and how come we're sort of not involved so much? And if the small business is such a big backbone of the Hamilton economy, which I'm, like Rachel just said, the resilience of small business owners is phenomenal during this crisis. I just hope that there is more cohesion and working together, and actual support, and instead of more words, but actual, people at the table and helping to guide things. Because I know with Hometown Hub, I don't think I ever received the listing. I just checked while you were speaking. I don't hardly see any businesses on there that belong in Westdale or Stony Creek. I work for both BIAs, so I just find it odd, and hoping that we could have more contact. That would be great. Thank you. Sorry for.
No problem. And maybe I'll try and address a few of those points as we go along. So with respect to the Hometown Hub, yeah, that was a very quick and fast reaction to get things out of the gate. My understanding, there was some engagement early on. I can't, again, those were pretty feverish couple first few weeks. So maybe I can come back and address that offline with you and get some more information, unless Julia or I know Mike Marini, I don't believe he's on the line this morning, but I know that it was pretty quick out of the gate on that one. With respect to the CIP and the review, maybe not to put Judy on the spot or Phil, but in terms of the, I don't believe that Phil was here 5 years ago, and I certainly wasn't my current role 5 years ago. So any comments that we can address for there, Judy, in terms of how anything has changed with respect to the review and requesting comments?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I think for sure the BIAs are very important in our consultation, which is why we had that public meeting. We also today had planned that you would get a private presentation as well. So we have another opportunity to hear your input. And I know last week, upon request, we also had met with the Barton Village BIA separately, because a lot of their members or board could not attend. So there is a lot of opportunity to hear one-on-one from you. And I think Phil can go over that later. But, the BIAs is, one of the facade grants that's very important. And yes, we've heard from you in the past in terms of, like, one example that's unique to the BIAs is you did not want any of your facade grants to be used on paving. That is unique to your BIA compared to the smaller facade grant. And so, I think in terms of what we want to do is we want to take into consideration everyone's inputs. So for sure, Tracy, if you want to meet with us, or you want either Westdale or Stony Creek, one separate meeting, if you didn't feel that there was enough information last week at the public meeting, and what Phil will hopefully get your input again today. So let us know if you really want more consultation.
And we certainly are. We're still early on in this process, so there is still time to make these comments, and not just to go for your BIA, Tracy, but all the, if you do want more strategic one-on-one sessions or one larger session just to look at BIAs, I'm sure we could arrange that. So certainly we welcome that input. It's a very fluid process, so you can imagine we have a lot of things that are going on, and but certainly we want to make sure we get your comments, and I think that's part of the presentation today. Phil is going to be talking about that CIP and the process going forward. So I think today's a great opportunity to get some of that initial input, and hopefully we can get more as it moves along.
And I don't want to forget that the Engage Hamilton platform, there's one-on-one surveys that you can submit and share your private comments with us as well. And we will read and take notes on every single comment that's made through the survey.
And similarly as well, I'm sorry, Susie, I see your hand going up there. So, but with respect to the Engage platform, we also, another great opportunity for BIAs to put and everyone to put their input in was for our Economic Development Action Plan. I believe that is now down off the platform, but if there's sessions that you would like to have, and we can arrange, a session where we can talk about, BIA inputs into the Economic Development Action Plan, do a presentation. Graham's going to be doing a presentation today with respect to the action plan and moving forward. So these are great opportunities for you to give and provide those inputs.
And Susie had a question.
Comment. I just wanted to take an opportunity while everybody's here to thank Julia. Our board especially has felt an enormous amount of support from Julia this year, especially when we needed it. And I just wanted to note that, because without her, I don't think several of us would be getting through what we are. I know she's always there when we need to talk to her. She's always full of information, and someone who's been around the block a few times with the BIAs, I can really appreciate that. So I just wanted to mention that for sure. She definitely deserves kudos. She hustles hard for the BIAs for sure.
And Susie, thank you for those comments. I call her a rock star in terms of her customer service and being able to get back to people, and especially at the height of the outdoor dining districts. I was talking to her at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and like, not just by email, but on the phone, in terms of asking her questions. She's like, she does literally work around the clock to satisfy the needs of all the small businesses in here in the city of Hamilton. So thank you for that comment. And,
yeah, she's the most asset, and we appreciate her for sure.
Thank
And
you.
I believe Tracy has a comment. Tracy,
Okay,
do you?
Tracy?
Sorry, back again. Yes, I'd like to say something positive as well. Julia has been absolutely fabulous, and the best program you guys did that our businesses saw the fastest work and the greatest speed and the greatest value was the outdoor dining districts. And I think the big part is because you had Julia there doing it, and it was a great face for the regular business owners just to see how the city worked, how quickly they worked, and how fabulous they worked. And really, it was down to Julia and Sarah, the other woman's name too. But Julia was great with us, and we totally appreciated all of her work. Thank you.
thanks, Tracy. Appreciate those comments.
Thank you. Any other?
Rachel, do you have a comment? Sorry, Counselor.
If that's okay, sorry, just we'll echo everything everyone said. For sure, Julia is the best. But also one other quick question. I'm on the Infection Prevention and Control Committee, and we are getting lots of information of what our businesses are requested to do. And I'm slightly concerned that the information is not being communicated to them. We as BIAs obviously do our best. There is a lot of information that is changing almost on a daily basis with regards to their requirements. For example, screening your employees every single day, and the fact that just having verbal consent when they, punch card in or anything like that is not even enough. The Ministry of Labor are asking for paper or computer copies that are recorded so that people can prove that they've been asking their employees these questions. So my concern is that a lot of our businesses, especially our restaurants and such, just do not have the capacity to take this on. I'm wondering if the city is looking at creating an app that can be used by all Hamilton employers, at the expense of the city, to be honest with you, that they can allow their employees to do prior to coming into work, because it's an expense. I mean, there's apps that are out there, but they cost money. And our small businesses right now just don't have the means to fund that on top of everything else, including PPE and plexiglass and mat. Like, it's just too much. So I'm just wondering if that's something that the city's looking at.
I haven't heard of yet, like a direction from the EOC, but that's certainly something I would be happy to take up. And maybe, Rachel, we can have a little more of an in-depth conversation offline about how that might look. And that's certainly something I think that we can be very supportive of. Of course, cost depending and everything else, but but to develop an app these days and something like that probably isn't that cumbersome. It's just a matter of finding a way to do it. We certainly have a lot of great developers in the city that could probably give us a hand with that. So why don't we have that conversation and figure that out? That's a great point. That's a great collaborative project.
Thank you.
Counselor, I see no further hands.
Actually, can I ask Norma a question? I was in Burlington, and this area had a lot of restaurants. I know our BIAs are all different. Some of them are heavy with restaurants, and they had a tent with heaters, and actually a lot of people were eating outside, and it was quite cold out. Is Hamilton doing something like that, and would that be considered indoor dining?
You know what? I'm going to let Julia basically answer that in terms of where we're going with our. I know we've extended our outdoor dining districts throughout to October 31st of 2021. So basically that option is there. But in terms of some of the specific details, I'm going to ask Julia to respond to that, because that's something that's been fairly recent, and I might not have all the exact details to speak to.
Thank you, Norm, and thank you for the question, Councillor. So with respect to the winterization of patios, we are working with businesses and BIAs in some cases, one-on-one for specific requests. There is a threshold for structures or tents where a building permit isn't required, as well as what the expectations are surrounding portable heaters and snow clearing, removal, and storage. So we are working with businesses who wish to extend into the winter months. We've received about a dozen requests so far across the city, and we do anticipate that that will increase. But we are willing to work with anybody over the winter to see what their needs are and to help facilitate and educate on what our process is, but also if a building permit is required or beyond that, we can walk them through that process as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there's no other questions, so we're going to move on. So I need a mover and a seconder to receive the staff presentation.
Moved by Rachel, seconded by Susie.
Thank you, and it's carried. I thank you again, Norm, for coming today.
And Councillor Pauls, thank you for having me, and committee members. I've already received 3 requests for walkabout tours, so keep them coming, and we'll make those arrangements. I'm sorry I can't. I have an 8:30 meeting that I need to attend to. We have a big federal announcement coming. You probably, if you saw CBC, we're announcing a foreign trade zone point today in Hamilton, which is kind of exciting. It'll make us basically it's a one-stop shop concierge services for international trade. So that's wonderful. Nice to see something like that coming up right now. But we have our prep meeting for our press conference at 8:30. So I need to bail. But anyway, pleasure seeing all of you.
Thank you. Bye, Norm.
Thank you. See you later.
Okay, and it's carried, and we're going to move on to community improvement plan. This is a 5-year review update, and I would like to introduce Phil Caldwell, Senior Project Manager, and Carlo Gorni, Coordinator of Municipal Incentives. And here are with the 5-year review update on the community improvement plan. You are both welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully nothing goes wrong. Is that okay?
Looks good.
Great. All right. Yes, my name is Phil Caldwell, Senior Project Manager. I'm a planner as well, working on the Commercial Districts and Small Business section with Judy Lamb and Carlo Gorni. Here's a nice picture of me, and here is a picture of Carlo as well. We are the project team reviewing the Downtown and Community Renewal Community Improvement Plan. Our contact information is there. It'll be presented again at the end of the presentation, so please feel free to reach out to me. Before I get started, I just want to say that this will be, in light of kind of a 10-minute limit on the presentation, this is going to be a bit of a truncated version of the presentation that we actually gave through a public virtual workshop that was held on the 29th. So in respect of the time, I'm going to kind of speed through this a little bit, but I want to make sure there's time for questions from anyone. Also, just to follow up on the comments this morning, we are always available to anyone if there's an interest in meeting individually. We're early on in the process still. We did have quite a good turnout for the public workshop that we had last week, which we pushed through social media, and we did individual targeted emails to about 110 people as well, including all the BIAs, to try and drum up some interest in that meeting. So we are out there. We are hoping to meet with as many people as possible. So please, by all means, if you feel that any comments or opinions have not had the opportunity to be provided to us yet, please, by all means, reach out to us. We really are looking to get this feedback and why we're here today. So first off, I just wanted to highlight some initial facts for everybody. So the CIP that authorizes the incentive programs was first introduced in 1997 and was last updated in 2016. As mentioned, we comprehensively review our CIPs every 5 years. This particular CIP was originally focused on the revitalization of downtown specifically when it was first created, but it's since expanded to include other objectives and areas. There are 12 different incentive programs authorized under this CIP right now. And the programs generally promote commercial facade improvements, the creation of residential units and housing in commercial districts, the heritage retention, general redevelopment of properties, as well as office tenancy assistance. And my colleague Carlo, as well as Lisa Browett, who you may have had some interactions with, they are very busy people because in 2019, they actually had 149 applications under these programs that were submitted and reviewed. So with these reviews, I always find it's helpful to kind of outline at the very beginning what the goal of what we're doing is. So it's a bit wordy, but this essentially, I think, sums it up, which is that the goal of the review is to identify potential amendments which may be needed to ensure that programs continue to be well positioned to attract investment from property owners, commercial tenants, and developers that will support the continued revitalization of Hamilton's commercial districts. Also, I find doing these meetings that it's also very helpful to highlight what is and is not within the scope of the review so that we can try and get as much feedback that's helpful and will inform the process as much as possible. So as part of this review, what's on the table is creation of new programs. We're also interested in modifying focus or intent of the programs if there's a desire or need. Adding or removing specific improvements or eligible costs, as we call them, which can be the subject of the grant. Increasing or decreasing the maximum potential grant available under a program. We're also looking at the community improvement project areas, which I'll touch on in a second. And also one of the outcomes is also possibly that there's just no changes that need to be made at this time. The programs are functioning well and they're fine. With respect to the community improvement project areas, this is the term that essentially defines the geographic boundaries within which we offer the incentives. Inevitably through this process, we will get requests to add in specific projects or properties so that they can be eligible for our incentives. As you can appreciate, we review those with a fairly high standard of a fairly high threshold for whether or not we would recommend that to council. Just from the perspective that these areas generally don't rely on a single property in order the eligibility of grants for a single property in order for the entire area to be revitalized. So, but having said that, we are open to any comments or ideas that may come up about different areas that need to be included or amendments to boundaries. One thing I'll also note is that many of our boundaries that are within the CIP where we offer incentives are not solely created through the CIP. They actually piggyback on other boundaries. So for example, some of our areas piggyback exactly on the BIA boundaries. In other places, there are planning or zoning boundaries that are boundaries aligned to, given that it's a commercial district focused kind of program. So that is another consideration that we have as well. And then there are things that are not part of this review. So we have other incentive programs that are administered under different CIPs. The ERASE program, which is for brownfield remediation, for example, or the Leading the Way CIP, which assists with costs for LEED certification and construction costs associated with LEED. Those are under different CIPs that are under their own 5-year review timetables, so they're not part of this review. This review does not include any matters related to the reductions or exemptions of development charges. These are administered under the development charges bylaw, and that was last updated in 2019. And I'm sure you can appreciate, given the current circumstances, that we're not at this point looking to make any amendments to the programs or overall that would require request of additional funding allocation by council to administer these programs. So anything we try and recommend the changes to, for instance, if we're going to add costs in some area or as eligible in the program, we might be reducing costs in other areas to balance out so that the existing funding that's allocated will achieve what we're trying to do. Now, I won't get into this in big way, but I'm a planner and I feel obliged to make sure everyone has an understanding of what CIPs are legislatively. So in Ontario, a municipality can only offer financial incentives to private landowners if the municipality has first created a community improvement plan. Without that document, it is considered bonusing and would be illegal for the city. So in that sense, CIPs are essentially policy documents that are authorized under the province's Planning Act, and they are intended to establish the intent, rationale, and desired outcome of providing the incentive. How that intent or outcome aligns with and supports municipal and provincial policies. So that would include the city's Urban Hamilton official plan, zoning objectives, as well as provincial documents like a place to grow. The CIP also outlines the specific geographic boundaries, as I mentioned, called Community Improvement Project Areas, or CIPs for short. This is done as a companion bylaw to the CIP, as approved by council. And the CIP also outlines the specific purpose of each individual program and how it aligns with the overarching intent of the CIP and its goals. And then the consideration of a CIP is by council. It must be approved by council, and this is done as part of a statutory public meeting under the plan. So this is where we're going to touch on a current CIP in the programs and areas that we have. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. So these are the areas that the programs currently apply within, generally speaking. So we have downtown Hamilton, all of the community downtowns, the BIAs and various commercial corridors throughout the city, the Mount Hope Airport Gateway area, as well as designated heritage properties. So these are the programs. They're kind of color-coded by theme, so I'll just very quickly highlight. I won't get into the specifics of these, but if there's any questions on these and anything that might be eligible or not eligible in any of these programs, Carlo's here and he can by all means answer those questions. But generally, we have 2 tax increment grant programs in dark blue there in the corner, the Hamilton Tax Increment Grant and the Barton Kenilworth Tax Increment Grant. In purple, we have 2 programs that are housing focused, which are the Commercial Corridor Housing Loaning Grant and Downtown and Barton Kenilworth Multi-Res Property Investment Programs. We have in green, the Office Tenancy Assistance, which helps with providing loans for the interior fit-up of office space. We have 3 programs that are for commercial property improvement, or generally known as facade improvement grant programs. One specifically for the BIA, one for Barton Kenilworth specifically, as well as a broader program that applies to various commercial corridors throughout the city. And then in the, I don't know what color that is, it's not great, but the greeny yellow is the Barton Kenilworth Planning and Building Fee Rebate Program, which provides rebates of application fees and such for various development applications required in the Barton Kenilworth area. And then I've highlighted in red there the 3 heritage programs. One thing to note is there are actually currently multiple pieces of bylaws and legislation that authorize those programs to exist. The CIP is actually a duplication effort in terms of these programs having been included in it right now. So one change we are going to make is to remove these programs from the scope of the CIP. That doesn't mean the programs are going away. They will continue to exist in their current form. They just are already approved through other means and don't need the CIP to be involved. So as part of this review, part of the reason we do this is to make sure the programs are achieving their intended objectives. We try and look ahead for the next 5 years to see what issues might be coming down the pipeline that these programs should try and get out ahead of and maybe try and address through incentives. And it's also a time for us to check in with council to make sure that their priorities are reflected in terms of the incentives being provided. So there are some issues that we are quite aware of that have arisen and that we think are going to be need to be addressed in some form or another through our review. So I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that affordability in Hamilton is declining and the pressures are growing to do what we can to try and facilitate more affordable housing. Not just affordable, deep affordable housing, but also just modest affordable housing. People who are working but don't have the means to access the current housing market because of the rising rents and purchase prices of houses in Hamilton. So we think this is a particular concern in terms of commercial districts because the success of these areas partly relies on having strong local resident population. And that support local businesses, and we heard that loud and clear through the public workshop that we had, where I think the most common feedback I heard was the need for more residential population in these areas to support local businesses. And in a broader sense as well, having strong local populations helps to create a diverse workforce, which only helps to attract more businesses to the city. So again, on top of mind for many people, I'm sure, is the current environmental and climate change crisis that the city and the world are facing. Last year, the city declared a climate emergency, and we are focusing as to what these programs can do to try and assist with the city's objectives to address environmental sustainability and climate change. So we think, particularly through our commercial property improvement grant programs, that there are opportunities to increase the eligible costs, to expand them to include things that are related to environmental sustainability. So, for example, we think depaving of sites on private property, for example, allowing landscaping or tree planting on private property, creating more porous surfaces, electric vehicle charging stations, solar panels. These are just some of the things we're thinking could be things that we would allow those grants to be used to help assist financially with. And again, I'm sure it's top of mind for this group, without a doubt, is the issues surrounding retail, brick and mortar retail, and the continuing decline. Certainly before COVID, these were issues that were already happening because of e-commerce and online shopping. But I'm sure it's only fair to say that COVID has only exacerbated these issues for retail. And so we're going to be looking ahead to see what can try to be done for our programs to assist in the event that these areas and our commercial districts throughout the city start to see greater vacancies that need to be addressed. That was all very doom and gloom, but there is some progress, a positive progress really, that needs to be mentioned, I think. Specifically within the downtown project area. Since 2016, we've seen at least 9,700 units proposed through formal consultations and OP and ZBA and site plan applications, which is just a phenomenal number of units to see happening in the downtown. And 2,500 units above and beyond those have actually already been approved and are breaking ground. So we know the 9,700 units, not all will materialize. They are just proposals in some instances, but nonetheless, it's a very positive number to see in terms of interest occurring downtown. And on the office vacancy front, we've seen some progress there as well. So in 2016, there was a 13.8% office vacancy rate in downtown, with more than 700,000 square feet of vacant office space. In our last check in 2020, that had dropped to 11.8%, a drop of 2% within 4 years. So that's good news. But with good news is the inevitable question around the role of incentives. Are incentives still needed? Are they still needed to the level that they have been provided given the successes being seen in some areas? Are they needed more in some areas versus other areas? Those are questions that we anticipate and have to answer. So that's another part of this review that I think is considered as well, and that we would appreciate your feedback on. And there is an unknown as well, which is, of course, the COVID-19 impact, how it's continuing to impact and will continue to impact, and when the end will be in sight, hopefully. On that front, there is the Mayor's Task Force on Economic Recovery, which I believe some of you may be involved with. So we, like many people, are waiting to see what the outcome of that report will be in terms of recommendations, and we stand ready to try and address any objectives or matters that come up through that report through the CIPs where appropriate. As far as our project timeline, so we have actually internally been kind of doing some pre-work by engaging with other municipalities to understand what programs they have in terms and looking at how Hamilton stacks up comparatively with other elected municipalities. We actually interviewed and met with virtually with some staff from Windsor, London, and Kitchener, who had some very interesting programs that we wanted to learn more about. So we did that before September, but in September, we really started to push a public consultation aspect of this review. And things have been going very well. As I mentioned, we had our virtual public meeting, workshop, I should say, in October 29th. We have an Engaged Hamilton platform, which I'll talk about in a second as well. So we're out there. We are hoping to get as many people interested in talking to us as possible. After we get through public and stakeholder engagement, we'll be taking all that feedback that we've heard, and we'll be actually developing the proposed amendments, which we plan to do throughout November up until February of next year. And it is our intention to bring forward those amendments to Council for their consideration in March of 2021. And that, if we meet that timeline, that would give us about 2 months of prep time to amend things internally in terms of program applications, legal agreements, and things that we use to implement the programs for an effective date of May 2021. Yeah, as I mentioned, we have been utilizing the Engage Hamilton platform to try and provide access to information about the review and to hear your comments. So we have background information about the CIP, our review. In fact, the public workshop that we held on the 29th, the slide deck and the actual video of that meeting are up online now. So if you'd like to watch me again, I don't know why I would, but if you really wanted to, you can get a more extensive version of this presentation and hear some of the comments that we heard as well. We'll also have a summary document going up very shortly that highlights and summarizes a lot of the feedback that we heard from many people who attended, including many of the BIAs here today. There's also a forum to submit questions and ideas, as well as, I know Norm mentioned that there's a bit of survey fatigue, but we do also have a survey, which is available on that page to provide input to us. And again, that's Carlo and I's contact information. So if there's any questions, please by all means.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Is there any question for Phil?
And Phil, if you can, oh, beautiful, just because I couldn't see. So Carrie has questions. Does anyone else have questions, just so I know? Tracy and Rachel, so.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, hi, Phil. How long are you leaving the survey open?
The survey and the forum to submit questions to us will be open until the end of November. Okay, great. And we're happy to meet with anyone individually if there's a desire to have a more one-on-one kind of conversation.
Okay, we're going to do a newsletter article on that for Friday, so I just wanted to make sure that we had the timing right.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Was it Tracy?
Tracy.
Yes, sorry, I wasn't sure if Rachel was going. Thank you, Phil, for your presentation. Just wondering if it's possible to have updates at our monthly meetings here on, just so we can add comments and kind of see what amendments are being considered. Is that possible?
Yeah, for sure. When we're maybe once we have some initial draft ideas of what we're going to be amending, we can come to you and present those to you for some feedback before we actually make our way to council.
Great, I really appreciate that. Thanks very much. And I like Carrie, will share that survey. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, who's next? Is it Rachel?
Rachel.
Thank you. Sorry, Phil, you hear lots from me about these grants because I'm very opinionated.
By all means.
So a couple quick things that we weren't able to get out, or I wasn't really able to get out at the meeting last week, was my request is to have more information shared with BIAs. So I know in other municipalities, I've seen their newsletters and it highlights the buildings or the businesses that get access to the grants. And it's a really great motivation for other property owners to say, hey, I should be doing that grant. But unfortunately, we don't get any of that information. So my request is that you share with BIAs not just who gets the grant, but who gets declined, who's starting a grant and the process is slow, because that gives us the ability to go in and work alongside those people to say, hey, you know, you reached out to Carlo and expressed interest in doing a grant. Where are you at? Can I support you? Do you need, you know, that kind of thing? And I think that would increase the numbers, because I know while you shared great numbers, I think if you look year over year in BIAs, the grants have gone down. And I think it's because the process is a little bit onerous for our property owners and business owners. So unless you really know the system, you don't access the system, which really kind of penalizes the small guys, I feel, which is why I would also push that if there is a way to modify one of the grants somehow so that there's more support for live workspaces. I feel that used to be the backbone of a lot of our BIA areas, and we're losing it. And the main reason we're losing it is because banks and financial institutions will not support commercial property purchases or mortgages unless you're a huge corporation. And typically the corporations have their own funding model, and it's not banks or financial institutions. But the everyday person just can't afford commercial property, even if they're living above. So my push would be for us to have some form of, and it doesn't have to be a grant, it could be a loan, or it could be, a mortgage or something, so that they can actually invest and purchase property and have that sustainability and security of owning their property, and they're their own landlords. Because that is what has killed businesses through COVID. It's not been COVID, it's been my landlords. So that would be my encouragement.
And if I could just take 2 moments to follow up on that. So on the first point about communicating not only who's approved, but refused, because we do report on the approved grants because it's delegated authority to our general manager. So we do, if I remember correctly, it's quarterly reports to provide an update on who's being approved. We will look into who's being refused as well, and to keep track of what those refusals are for, like why that was happening. We don't do many refusals. There tend to be more people who were approved, but who just never ended up taking up the approval. So that'll be something where we might be looking to do a little more reach out to find out why that happens. So I think we discussed a bit of that at the meeting. So we'll follow up on that. And as far as the purchase, helping with the purchase of properties, we definitely heard, especially when it came to artist spaces, which are quite integral to some of these areas because they add that vibrancy and uniqueness that you don't get in a shopping mall, for example, that they are being pushed out because of rising rents and are relocating. One of the reasons our hands are tied behind our back a little bit on that one is just because we are not allowed to CIPs to supplement rent. This CIP, just for everyone's information, is a planning document and is intended to support physical improvements that support physical revitalization. I granted assisting with rents would only fill spaces and help people make it more vibrant, but it is unfortunately one of the limitations of the legislation that these plans operate under. But for sure, we are interested in any ideas that there might be in terms of programs that could help assist financially with improvements. So I think the idea of a program that helps purchase, we would need to look into that a little more with our legal folks to see if that would be within the scope of our legislative framework. I'm not sure it is, but leave that with me and we'll look into it. And also if you have any other kind of ideas as well that could help support physical grants or loans that would help with the physical elements, that would also be very appreciated as well.
Thank you, Phil. And any other questions for Phil?
Susan has a question.
Susan?
Yeah, it's more comment, Phil. You talked about people that had been approved for grants and chose not to move forward with them. And I do have an example of somebody of that in our area. And I think, and I don't know if this is happening more widespread, but the process of applying for the grant opens up all the permitting that's required, taking a look at their building. And to do the work that they had hoped to do, they have to retroactively do a lot of other things to get them up to code that becomes far more expensive than the grant that they were applying for in the first place, that had nothing to do with what they were hoping to do. But because it was lumped in as part of the permitting process, it became prohibitive for them. So just wanted to comment when you mentioned that some people apply for them, are approved and don't take them up. I think that might be the case for a lot of people, that it opens a can of worms that they are not prepared to take on.
Yep, I can totally foresee that, especially in a lot of the older areas where there's older buildings where you touch one thing and it's kind of a Pandora's box of issues that might arise. So that's something we're aware of, and we'll take that under advisement and see if there's anything we can do.
Because unfortunately, what that becomes is a disincentive for them to do any upgrades to their building, whether it's a grant program or not. It just becomes, as I said, prohibitive for them. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Susan. Any other question for Phil?
I don't see anyone else,
Okay,
Councillor.
thank you. We're going to have a mover and a second to receive the staff presentation. Moved by
Jennifer,
Jennifer
seconded by Heidi.
and Heidi. Thank you. And it is Carrie. Thank you. We're going to move on to Economic Development Action Plan. Graham Brown, Business Analyst, is here with an update. Welcome. Welcome, Graham.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me back again. I believe it was maybe around a year ago. It could have been 10 years ago based on how it feels through this kind of challenging time. And I was talking about the business succession plan that the City of Hamilton was looking to investigate implementing, and we were doing some research. So this presentation is about the Economic Development Action Plan, but I wanted to mention that specific program that obviously we weren't able to get off the ground because that program was an action that was identified in our current and nearly expired 5-year Economic Development Action Plan. And so ultimately that program was identified as something that we should be pursuing based on feedback we got from stakeholders when we did our engagement for our 2016-2020 Economic Development Action Plan. And we are now going through the process of creating a new 5-year Economic Development Action Plan. And so you can see how engagement with stakeholders, the identifying of issues and opportunities ultimately helps influence the kind of medium-term strategic objectives and identified actions that the partners throughout the City of Hamilton can kind of rally behind and get together to pursue. And that's really the point of the city's efforts to create a 5-year Economic Development Action Plan. It is a document that is led from a creation perspective by the Economic Development Division and the Tourism and Culture Division. But really the intent is for it to be a city-wide document that incorporates some of the initiatives and objectives of not only like city staff and related kind of committees, but as well as the general community. So just kind of as a sense of place, that's a little maybe my introduction. I know that this presentation is limited to 10 minutes and I've probably eaten up 1 minute. I hope everyone has the 1-page kind of high-level overview that I provided. Given that like it's a single page, and I'm kind of speaking remotely from my basement on my phone, I'm not going to share screen on that document, only because if everyone has it in front of them, it's probably easier for you to kind of follow from that perspective, from an orientation perspective. But really, every 5 years, based on kind of the cadence and the term in which the City of Hamilton has identified the need to have a multi-year action plan. Every 5 years, we're looking to kind of provide an update and create that new document. A little bit of context. If everyone has had an opportunity to read the current Economic Development Action Plan, it's about a 64-page document, which was a bit of a departure from the 2010 to 2015 Economic Development Action Plan, which was about 500 pages. So you can imagine that moving from 500 pages to 64, you need to streamline the document quite a bit, and it becomes less of an encyclopedia of all of the entities and issues and characteristics of Hamilton, and looks instead to kind of point to some of the other foundational strategic documents and to act more as a kind of umbrella that incorporates them all. And so a really good example of how the Economic Development Action Plan is that umbrella, is a large multi-year document like the CIP that Phil had just spoken about. The CIP review would be one of those actions that sit underneath the Economic Development Action Plan. And so all of those really tactical programs, initiatives, grants, loans are encapsulated within that CIP plan, but sit under the Economic Development Action Plan as something that is one of those many things that we're working on to help move Hamilton's economy forward and meet the needs of the businesses and general public in Hamilton. So when it comes to the updating of the existing action plan to write that new 5-year action plan, we are leveraging a wide variety of resources, and many of those would be existing approved, council approved documents and strategic documents, like the city's overall kind of 10-year strategic plan and our 25-year Our Future Hamilton community vision plan, as well as existing approved, council approved strategic documents for the various departments and divisions, leveraging our external partners and their efforts through various kind of recommendation documents, such as the Mayor's Task Force for Economic Recovery and those various reports that have ultimately come and been surfaced from there, as well as documents that have been put out by Chambers of Commerce. And unfortunately, due to COVID, a lot of the more recent kind of public engagement efforts have been limited to kind of online engagement, primarily surveys, electronic surveys, or in some cases, online facilitated meetings like the one that Phil and Carlo would have facilitated for the CIP review. Those, in addition to city staff who, in the Economic Development Division specifically, and speaking for that division because I'm a member of that division, staff are kind of key advocates for specific either sectors or groups. And you guys would all obviously be very familiar. I caught a lot of the thanks that was sent to Julie. And in addition to kind of feedback we received directly from stakeholders, and speaking of BIA specifically, that we received from both you and your members through these online surveys, both the ones that we've recently completed as well as those that we've done over the past few years. Julie, in your case, is the advocate for BIAs, bringing all of the knowledge that you guys have instilled in her and all of the engagement that she's done with you, the participation in this and other forms of meetings. She's bringing that along with your ideas, words directly to the process of creating this plan. And I would say that, you know, I'm again cognizant of time, but ultimately this document is something that we were aiming to get out in the early stages of Q1 in 2021. We were targeting a January council date to bring that plan forward. Ultimately, I think that that's going to be delayed to later in Q1. The council date has yet been decided, primarily because we have been looking to lean fairly heavily on recommendations that will be coming from the Mayor's Task Force for Economic Recovery. And when we originally created the project timeline, one, we wanted to try and bring our 5-year Economic Development Action Plan to council and get it approved in the very beginning of 2021 versus, you know, further along within that 5-year cycle. But we do want to make sure that we are incorporating that document due to its recency and how the world and specifically the economic situation in Hamilton has changed in the last 9 months. So that looks to be kind of extended. And as such, in addition to the outreach and the feedback that has been received through the various BIAs that I've seen as looking at the results from the Engage Hamilton survey for the Economic Development Action Plan, and kind of piggybacking on the offer that Norm put out to everyone for those kind of walking tours, virtual walking tours, walking at a distance, or like kind of direct engagement with Norm. And if he decides it's worthwhile to have me participate as well, that's another direct avenue that we can receive some feedback from you and those ideas that you might have. Ultimately, this document isn't going to be extremely tactical. So when we are putting things forward as kind of major actions to pursue and ultimately endeavor to complete, they're fairly high level, and a lot of times those actions are indicating the creation of another strategic document that would have its own unique set of recommendations. So I just want to kind of put out there and make people aware it's a rather heady kind of title and action plan. But if there are specific tactical ideas that you have, we're willing to and we're interested in hearing those. But if they aren't directly mentioned in the action plan, it doesn't mean that there's no potential chance of those being pursued over the next 5 years. They might just end up sitting as recommendations in a kind of smaller strategic document. So I apologize. Having seen Phil's presentation, it was fairly robust. Mine is extremely streamlined. And one thing for the next time, if I haven't messed up too badly, I will definitely put my contact information, but I will certainly I'll ask Julie to circulate that to you. And I would say, before I kind of open up to comments and provide any additional detail that you might have from some of the areas I touched on in my high-level overview, I do greatly appreciate the value and strength of your recommendations and your advocacy when you are kind of communicating opportunities for public input to your members. There's no one that I would believe has a greater influence on their interest and willingness to provide their input to any type of engagement activity, specifically through the city, than you guys when it comes to encouraging them to kind of open that email or attend an event in prior COVID times. Your belief in the value of their time kind of putting forward into these public engagement efforts is extremely valuable. And I've seen through the various surveys that we've done this year during COVID, specifically the COVID impact survey that went out in, I believe, Q2, there was a direct correlation between when I was aware that you guys broadcasted to your network the opportunity for them to fill it out, and when we started seeing responses from your membership, and it happens within 24 hours. So the strength of your voice above and beyond, the City of Hamilton's Twitter account or Hamilton Economic Development's Invest in Hamilton newsletter, really, you guys are the kind of primary advocate for those kind of efforts, and I greatly value your endorsement of those things, as well as I would imagine all of my colleagues. And I just wanted to report that your recommendations are heard by your members and do provide real tangible results. So I greatly thank you for that. And I think Norm alluded to an interest coming from Jason, our general manager, and I believe senior management of the city, that there will be it'll be important to kind of check the temperature of businesses in Q1 as kind of a final engagement for the Economic Development Action Plan, along with other to inform other initiatives within the city, and your support for that survey amongst all the other surveys that everyone's being asked to fill out will be instrumental in that effort, ultimately yielding usable results. So thank you. I greatly appreciate the ability to kind of address everyone. I have gone over 10 minutes, so I apologize, but I'm now going to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. And Graham, is there any other questions for Graham?
Rachel?
Rachel? Okay, anybody else?
Start with my nasty one, just full disclosure. Appreciate everything you said, but my pushback slightly is on the one-page overview doc you sent. In your engagement overview, do not list BIAs in there. Is there a reason for that? Are we supposed to be lumped under Hamilton ECDAV? Like, I just find as BIAs, when people often think, oh, we're going to reach out to the business community, let's do chambers. Chambers do not reach the local independent businesses. BIAs do, which I guess is why you're here. So I appreciate you being here. It's just BIAs need to be put on paper too, because it discredits our work if we're not. So that's my first pushback. Sorry to be nasty on the first one. The second one was I did the survey on behalf of the Barton Village BIA, but I just felt like it was really tricky for a BIA to do the survey as a BIA, if you know what I mean, because it was very specific, have you had to close? Well, as a BIA, we won't close, but some of our businesses would. So I don't know if it would be beneficial for you if you wanted to put together, and I may be throwing all my colleagues under the bus on this one, so I apologize. But if you wanted to put together a few questions that are more specific for BIAs that we could address for you, that may be more beneficial to you, because I felt like when I was doing the survey, somebody reading it would just be really kind of misleading, so to speak. So if that's beneficial and you're looking for a bit of an overview from each of the BIA areas, it may be more beneficial to do one geared just to BIAs.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, Rachel. If you don't mind, I'll kind of follow up on that. I think it's important. One, that I got your comments down, but two, if there's an ability for me to answer immediately, I can do that. So first off, I apologize, Rachel, to you and to everyone as a part of this committee. That was a mistake to not have that listed, to not have the BIAs listed. And there's no excuse for that. Certainly, like, the BIAs aren't lumped under anything. I provided a little context of myself the last time I presented. For those that don't know, I used to be an employee of the Downtown Hamilton BIA, so I understand. I've walked those streets. I've talked to all those businesses. I wasn't there for very long. I was a summer student, but I certainly have an appreciation for the value, the volume of businesses that you all collectively represent. And so I know that I've provided a high-level one-page overview to others. Sorry, it was a two-page overview, and looks like I've missed some bullet points that were clearly important for this this presentation in this one-page overview. So you have not been forgotten, nor are you kind of sitting under another kind of subgroup. And I can say that Julia wouldn't allow for that to happen anyways. So I'm sure that I'll get some ribbing for quite a while from Julia about that. So secondly, the difficulty with online surveying, and in that survey, there was a little bit of kind of skip logic in there, because we wanted to provide the general public, along with businesses, along with organizations that represent businesses, and all of the different kind of styles, scopes, and kind of structures of organizations to fill it out, trying to enable so many people to feel like they can engage in that survey tool inevitably makes the fit of every single question difficult. And that's why that survey had a lot more open-ended questions that would allow you to kind of have your voice through that. Having said that, it wasn't a perfect structure, and being very cognizant of the fact that a lot of people do have survey fatigue. I wasn't looking to kind of publish hundreds of different ones. However, if there's an appetite, even just from you, Rachel, I would be more than happy to provide like a kind of short list of questions. Or a secondary thing is I would also be happy to host a call with any or all, even individually or in a group, to have a more open-ended discussion. The survey was meant to primarily be, in certain cases, the ability to kind of test some concepts that were either tested 5 years ago when it comes to some of like the issues or like some of the priorities. And we also asked who responded. So I'm able, and I do look through every single response. I provide a little bit more weight to those responses that are coming from organizations representing a lot of businesses, like all of yours. So, but having said that, I would be more than happy to host one or more calls, as well as listen very closely and intently to the feedback that you guys not only provide Julia, but also that you provide Norm, for those that kind of take Norm up on his offer for that direct engagement. So I can follow up through Julia at a later time for like providing my contact information. And there aren't thousands of members of the BIA. There are 13 BIAs, and I would be more than happy to either host an individual call or to do a kind of collection if some of your BIAs feel like you have similar issues or ideas that you want to kind of collectively kind of participate in a call. Either is something that I would look to kind of work with you all to help accommodate as your timing permits. But I do think that if that can be something that we look to accomplish before the end of 2020, that would be great. Only because it provides a little bit more time for your ideas to be shared with my project steering committee, which consists of all the managers and directors of the Economic Development Division and the Tourism and Culture Division. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Councillor, I see Tracy as well.
Okay, Tracy?
Thank you, Graham, for coming today. And just to sort of reiterate, again, I'm new, so I just kind of read the document and like Rachel, I thought, well, where are the BIAs? So in economic development, I just can't believe they're just not on the list. So glad to hear that you're listening, and then you will add, and I'm sure if you share some information with us through Julia, and Julia is our champion, we'll be happy to offer comment and assistance. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right. Any other question for Graham? Okay, I see none. So I need a mover and a seconder to receive the staff presentation.
Moved by Rachel, seconded by Tracy.
Thank you. And it's carried. Discussion item 9.1. Ontario Business Improvement Area Association Conference 2021. Carrie, would you like to provide an update? Thank you. Carrie?
Sorry, Councillor. There you go. There's Julie. Perfect.
Hi there.
Oh, it says
Sorry,
Carrie.
really
Okay.
issues this morning, so I've called in now, so hopefully that will work. But on behalf of Carrie, I'd be happy to give an update. There actually isn't much more to update since our last BIA Advisory Committee meeting. Some things that I can let you know is that the conference committee, the overall conference committee, did have a walkthrough at the Hamilton Convention Center last Friday, November 6th, and that walkthrough went very well. They are hopeful for a 150-person conference from April. There are safety measures in place and operational changes and procedures that the convention center has put in place. So we are still working towards the hybrid conference model with 150 attendees as well as virtual attendees. Obviously, in the coming weeks and months, we know there'll be varying conversations, but that's the update that we have. There is a conference committee meeting this Friday, and then I've sent it to a few, but I will send it to everybody, a host committee meeting next Tuesday to provide some updates from the conference committee meeting, and then continue our discussion from our previous meeting, which was, I believe, back in October. So not much to update, but we are still ongoing with the planning, and it is looking good in terms of safety precautions. So we will continue to move forward with the hybrid model and look forward to providing a more robust update at next month's meeting. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Julia. Is there any question for Julia? I see none. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to receive the discussion?
Moved by Jennifer, seconded by Heidi.
Thank you. And nobody opposes, and it's carried. 9.2, governance discussion, payment process. Susan would like to start the discussion off. Thank you, Susan. Welcome.
Yeah, so I mentioned this before at our other little meeting, is that I know some of the people on this committee, their boards are already doing some electronic transfer payments, and my board is starting to look at that, knowing that it's particularly in COVID, it's been very difficult to obtain signatures sometimes, and we anticipate in the future that some vendors will stop receiving checks, and there is an expense to checks. So we're looking at trying to do some direct payment for payroll, and the process to do some of our other payments electronically. And the way we have created processes and protocols for so many of the other things that we do, where there's a citywide recommendation, whether it's our procurement policy, our hiring policies, I think that it would be great to have some kind of benchmarking against those who are already doing it, and then come forward with some recommendations that would be approved by the city, so that if we as a board are doing it, make sure that it falls within the bylaws, we are doing it correctly, and that each board could obviously tweak it a little bit if it doesn't make sense for them. But I just kind of didn't want to do it in isolation here. And put something in place that either isn't within the municipal act, within our bylaws, or that is very different from what other BIAs are already starting. So I wanted to start this discussion and see if we can perhaps get a few people working together on collecting some of that information. I don't know if just as a quick raise your hands, how many on this call today are already doing some electronic payments? So Susie, Lock Street. So 2. Lisa, are you still on? Dundas, you guys were doing some at some point, I think.
Yes, it's Lisa. Yes, we do some electronic payments. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
So I'm not, like, I felt, Julia, that there would be some input from the city if we are putting forward something through this committee, to make sure, as I said, that it meets with whatever the city's recommendations are for electronic payments, and then some benchmarking in terms of how signatures or approvals of those payments. I don't know, Julia, if you have some input on what the guidance from the city would be on this, because it's not very clear in our bylaws.
So thank you, Susan. And just to provide a little bit of input from a governance standpoint. So it isn't explicitly outlined in the bylaw. There is the flexibility for the board to pass a motion to operate in what makes most sense for them. And in a lot of cases, we're seeing electronic transfers. We're seeing one signature on checks. There's very ways that we can do it, as long as you're following fiscal responsibility and financial accountability. There is a flexibility in the procedure bylaw. We are slated to get updates on the procedure bylaw. We have been delayed with legal, unfortunately, because I know that's something we've been talking about for a while, and about 6 months ago. But that is one of the recommendations within the update to the procedure bylaw, because it's something that we have been hearing. So hopefully by the end of 2020, we will have that to you for your comment and review. but the board does have the flexibility to pass operational processes and procedures that will work for your individual BIA right now as the current bylaw stands, if that is helpful.
Sorry, you cut out at the end. I did notice in our bylaws, there is, you know, part 2 of that banking thing, but I know our counselor who comes to a lot of our meetings just felt quite strongly that that we didn't necessarily want to create our own policy, but that we were hoping that there would be a more, as I said, sort of benchmarking and recommendation like our procurement policy that we could then adapt as needed. So I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to take that on to start collecting information in terms of how those that are doing electronic transfers, what they're doing them for, how they're getting approvals on them, and then maybe present back and get input from anybody who is not on what they would like to see, or if that's even something that their board is interested in.
So, and hopefully I don't apologize for my connection issues this morning. But, you know, if that is something that is needed at more of a broad level, more detail than what's in the procedure bylaw, and that's what your board is asking for, we can work with Waterdown one-on-one or any other BIA one-on-one to help give your board peace of mind. There is a flexibility within the bylaw, but if the interpretation isn't the same across, we can look at additional policies to be adopted. So I'm absolutely open to that in those conversations. And realistically, you know, it's much easier to do electronic transfer. COVID was not the reason for that. I mean, you know, we are in 2020, and I mean, I think most of us do our personal banking online. So right now there is a flexibility, but if your board needs more guidance, I'd be happy to attend a board meeting and speak to them, or work on developing an additional policy to be adopted on top of, as you mentioned, the recruitment policy, the nepotism policy, the hiring policy, etc. So we can do that for you and work with you to make sure it's successful for your BIA.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, you know, when we go through the auditing process every year, we have to fill out the management inquiries document. And so I think it's, you know, also very important that whatever we come up with does meet the scrutiny of our auditors to ensure that our policies with respect to that, I mean, the 2 signatures, it's very clear what's going through. When we start getting into electronic payments, then some of those questions on the management inquiries document, it's not just up to our interpretation and our flexibility. I just feel like there might be some more overall guidance that would be required for all of us. And if we're going through this and we're looking at this, then I would think that some of the other boards are as well. So I'm happy to work with you, Julia, one-on-one. But I still think it would be good for all of us to be at least reviewing what others are doing and what makes sense for us.
And I love best practice research. So let me work with you one-on-one, an email to the group to see if anybody else is interested in broader conversation. Always willing to work with anybody one-on-one, and I'll do some outreach for best practice research as well. And is my connection okay right now? Okay, great. I apologize.
You're choppy for me, but I'm having trouble connecting too.
Okay, I apologize, you guys. But hopefully, I offline and report.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And Julia, maybe for the next part of the meeting, maybe if you want to phone in and abandon the video, might work a little bit better.
I got booted when I called in.
Okay, I'm going to leave and call in. I apologize.
How do I mute?
Okay.
Okay.
Susie,
I think we're ready to receive the discussion.
Okay,
Yep.
Susan, thank you for that. Okay, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the discussion?
Jennifer, Rachel.
Jennifer and Rachel, thank you. Is there anybody opposed? I see none. It's carried. Let's go to 10. Motions, 10-1. Heidi, would you like to introduce your motion? And we will need a seconder for your motion.
Yes, Rachel has agreed to second the motion.
Thank you, Rachel.
The Lock Street Business Improvement Area expenditure request. The expenditure request from the Lock Street Business Improvement Area in the amount of $2,547.66 for hanging baskets for the summer to be funded from the Community Improvement Plan, CIP Contribution Program, BIA Payments Account 815010-56905 be approved. And that the expenditure request from the Lock Street BIA in the amount of $3,726.70 for Christmas hanging baskets and Christmas holiday decor for tree ornaments and maintenance to be funded from the Shared Parking Revenue Program, Parking Revenue Account 815010-4559 be approved.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. And we will vote on the motion. Is there anyone opposed? I see none, and it's carried. 10-2. Tracy, would you introduce your motion?
Yes. So I have a motion and I need a seconder.
Yes.
Anybody?
Yes, you need a seconder, please.
So how about Heidi, please?
Heidi, thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, Westdale Village Business Improvement Area expenditure request. That the expenditure request from the Westdale Village Business Improvement Area in the amount of $11,551.23 for the cost of streetscape tents and tables to be funded from the Community Improvement Plan Contribution Program BI Payments account to be approved, and that the expenditure request from the Westdale Village Business Improvement Area in the amount of $16,067.66 for the cost of streetscape flowers and watering to be funded from the Shared Parking Revenue Program Parking Revenue account be approved.
Thank you. And we'll vote on the motion. Is there anybody opposed? I see none, and it's carried, and thank you. We're going to go to Lisa, 10.3. Would you introduce your motion, please?
All right, thank you.
Your seconder.
Can I have a seconder for my motion?
Anybody second?
Tracy.
Thank you. Read your motion.
Hi, do you need my video on, or I'm good just on audio?
You're fine on audio, Lisa.
All right, thank you. So downtown Dundas Business Improvement Area expenditure request. That the expenditure request from the downtown Dundas BIA in the amount of $14,952.49 for the cost of hiring summer staff to clean and maintain public road allowance by picking up garbage, cleaning graffiti, beautification efforts, $3,997.49, and the purchase of maintenance of hanging baskets through the BIA, $10,955 to be funded from the Community Improvement Plan Contribution Program BIA Payments Account be approved, and B, that the expenditure request from the Downtown Dundas BIA in the amount of $24,568.94 for the cost of promoting the Dundas BIA through marketing efforts for social media, television ads, and print media campaigns in 2020, $5,018.94, Christmas decorations and their maintenance, specifically 50 hanging wreaths, $10,300, new garlands and greenery, $9,250 to be funded from the Shared Parking Revenue Program. Parking Revenue account be approved.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. And everybody vote on the motion. Is there anyone opposed? I see none, and we'll carry on. General information.
Thank you.
12th one, it's a verbal update from Julia Davis. Thank you, Julia. Can you give us an update now?
Hello, everyone. I hope that you can hear me. I'm
Yes.
not going to turn my camera on in the hopes that my connection will be better. I apologize for this morning. So I will do this very quickly, just some very quick updates to you all. Just a reminder that your Christmas grants are currently available, and they must be used in 2020. They will not be carried over. As a reminder, these are matching grants up to $1,000 for any Christmas expenses, whether it's events, promotion, printouts, decor, anything along those lines. Submission of the receipts are to be to me by Wednesday, January 6th, 2021. And as well, and I will re-forward the email that I sent, but the parking reimbursement for promotion of the free parking. If you do any ads, Hamilton Municipal Parking will reimburse you up to $200 if the ad and the receipt is submitted to them. These can be print ads, these can be social ads, these can be videos. So keep that in mind for just an additional $200. As well, the reminder that the Digital Main Street Transformation Grants, the applications are currently open, and they're open until the end of November. These are the $2,500 transformation grants, and businesses are eligible even if they received the grant in the first iteration. So anybody who did receive the $2,500 previously can apply this time. It is all done online. And a reminder that the training has really been condensed. Previously, it was 8 hours of online training. Now it's only 2.5 hours. So it is significantly reduced. So just a reminder, by the end of November, applications are due for that program. Keith was at our meeting last month, but I do want to keep that front of mind because it is really, really helpful to our businesses who do need it. Another item to discuss is opportunities with the Hamilton Public Library. So the Hamilton Public Library is really looking at doing a lot of the community engagement pieces, and they are specifically looking for content to promote the BIAs. They gave a very broad request, as I understand it. So I have shared, or we will be sharing with them, the statistics and infographics with respect to all of the BIAs as a whole as a starting point. What I'd like to ask from each of you, and this is a bit of a last minute request, but if you have any photos of your BIAs that you'd like to share, they're going to be sharing this across their screens and their digital assets online, and as well as in their 24 locations across the city. So any photos of your BIA to be utilized, or if you can provide permission for captures from your social media, permission to use the photos that have been posted on your social media. That is an opportunity that everybody can take advantage of. We're sharing kind of a broad information across all the BAs, but it may get more specific. Really want to take advantage of this opportunity that we have. I just saw in the chat that Rachel said, can they share the videos that the generator did? We will be, I believe, sharing those videos with them. We want to give them as much content as possible, and then they can determine how they want to use it. But it's a free opportunity to promote the BIAs in general. So absolutely, any ideas that you have, please share with me. So any photos or permission to access your social media. And unfortunately, if you could send it to me by the end of day tomorrow, it can just be a quick email or phone call, just giving me a thumbs up or with an attachment. That would be great, just to get something going. But I believe this will be an ongoing opportunity.
Julia, can I just jump in really fast? Julia?
Yeah, please.
Sorry, sorry to cut you off, but just quickly, can I send you the whole Dropbox file that the generator did? Because in there are like hundreds of photos from 11 of the BIAs and videos, and that would cover you all. Would that be? It's all done, and it's a Dropbox. Can I send you that?
Yeah, I would actually just love to have that for my own
Yeah,
file. So
I'll give that to you guys. Is that okay with everybody? Okay.
I will likely pick some photos from there to get us started.
Take whatever you like, but it's a huge one, and it's all individual businesses and general shots and general videos and individual. Perfect. It's very good. Okay, thanks, Julia. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So if you can do that today, no one has to send me anything, and then we can build from there. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Tracy. Moving on, for the AGM, so we've had a few AGMs. Thank you to all for providing me your dates, those who have them scheduled. A reminder that I am available to attend all of your meetings, and I intend to attend all of them, and I am available to be on the agenda and speak. Some have asked me to, some was not within their agenda, but I will be at all your meetings. Anyone who had their meetings as of last week, your reports for your budgets will be at the December 9th General Issues Committee meeting, which will then be approved at the December 16th Council, and we will get the payment request in before the end of the year to our finance team. The next deadline for reports to go to the January meeting of General Issues Committee is getting me that by, say, 11:59 p.m. on December 3rd, and then those reports are to be sent through on December 4th. So I believe that we have 4 going December 9th, and then we'll have another 6 or 7 at the January meeting for those. And then we'll move into to those that host their meetings in the new year. So those are just the deadlines, but we are on target to make sure everybody gets their payments for their budgets and their levies. As well, I just wanted to touch on the request for expenditures from the last meeting, because we haven't met in so long, just to remind everyone of the timeline. So for any shared parking expenses or contribution to operating budget expenses that were at our October meeting, those should be approved and ratified tomorrow at council. And I will be doing the check requisitions either tomorrow or first thing on Thursday to be sent to finance this week and paid within the next 2 weeks. From this meeting, those will go to an upcoming General Issues Committee meeting, and likely the payments will be processed in early December. So for anyone who put requests in today, and then for subsequent meetings in December, that will likely roll into January. So we're looking at about a 6-week from our advisory committee meeting to payment to you. That's about the timeline right now, just as a reminder, because we haven't met or processed these yet this year. And beyond that, knowing that our case counts are going up a little bit, and there is some new information coming from public health, I'm going to be working with public health to get information, and I'd like to go back to a bit of the communication and outreach we did at the very beginning of COVID to make sure that you are all looped in on that, and just providing some content because I know that we're operating normally, but we are sort of seeing a little bit of a repeat in the changes in the provincial orders. So you may see a few more emails coming out from me, and it will be very much the lens of in the beginning of COVID, how not inundating you day to day, but making sure that you were kept in the loop of any changes. And I'm working to understand that as well, especially with the new color coding system from the province. So I'm committed to doing that. And I will be reaching out to potentially public health to attend our next meeting as I build that agenda. Those are my very quick updates. I apologize for my connection issues, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Julia. And is there any questions?
Tracy.
Tracy?
Sorry, me again. Just wondering if, I don't know if I missed it in your report, construction updates. We had requested that any construction going on we be notified of it in any of the BIAs. So just wondering if that's going to happen.
So there is still outreach to consolidate all of the distribution lists that are available. I'm requesting to be put on all of those lists and forward out appropriately. So that work is undergoing, and I apologize that wasn't in my update, but we will begin communicating everything that is available via myself. I'm going to be put on all of those distribution lists to make sure that you are looped in on the projects within your BIAs for what we do have available. Absolutely.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And Susan?
Susan?
I have 2 quick questions for you, Julia. Any updates on what's happening with those wraps that were supposed to go on our transit boxes?
Yes, so the utility wraps have been delayed due to COVID and expense freezing. They were hoping maybe this year, but likely they will be the spring. They will be pushed to the spring due to the limitations that we've had internally, but they are still on the radar. So that is a project that has been delayed due to COVID, and I apologize for that.
Okay, so it's really an expense delay.
Yes, permission. A lot of our budgets, although the approved projects, they were put on hold this year. So the money is available. We're just, right now, we're getting into, budgets are reopening, and we're working on 2021 plans. But with those specific wraps, it's also a weather issue. It needs to, I believe, be over 12 degrees Celsius for a certain period of time for them to adhere properly. So that is why we are looking at now the spring of 2021 to ensure that it's done properly.
And second part of my question is, can you either offline send me the contacts for the film office or pass along? We've had a couple of shots with productions within our BIA, and we've received no notice at all. So I just want a reminder to go to them that we are to be copied when things in advance, when things are happening in our BIA. and it's been a while since I've had their contact, so I did want to follow up with them a little bit. So.
Yes, I will do an e-introduction for you so that you have them. There's 3 of them there. And I know that there's been a lot of questions around filming, and offline I am connecting with the film office to have them come to an upcoming meeting to talk to the BIAs. And I think we need a little bit more of potentially a resource toolkit for you to use successfully. So I will do that e-introduction, absolutely. But there is more in the works for the film office to engage with the BIAs. Because we are very busy. We're seeing levels in Hamilton that we haven't seen ever. So yes, I will do that for you, absolutely.
When the production happens, we haven't heard about it. We don't know if it's because it's being done without a permit or if we've just been dropped off the radar. But there were a couple of things involving my members that I would have loved to have been able to promote or do a little bit more with, and we just had no idea it was happening.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions for Julia?
Oh, Tracy and Rachel.
Okay, Tracy.
Sorry, quickly, on the film thing, is it possible to have an e-introduction? I don't know if to everybody or, because I'd like to connect with them as well. I don't know if you want to do it for everybody. Then also a question on that parking grant, the free parking $200 grant. Can that be used for radio ads, or is it only print where the logo can be seen? Can City of Hamilton be mentioned in a radio ad?
It should be able to be used for a radio ad, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and I will introduce you to the film office for both Westdale and Stony Creek. I'll do each of those individually, just so that, we're not all kind of lumped in. So
sure,
if anybody does want that beyond, because I know a few BIs do quite a bit of filming and some don't, more than happy to make that introduction with Kim, Sarah, and Jennifer are the ladies that are in the film office. So definitely happy to do that. Thank you. Rachel?
Yeah, again, film, yay. We have a whole bunch of filming happening this week with permits.
I should be over in 5 minutes.
It's a bit of an issue. So when I was chatting with Sarah yesterday, because she didn't find out either, hence the no permits, she basically told me that because the film bylaw is so dated, bylaw offices will not come and enforce it. So it's better if they have permits and they're restricted based on their permit, because then that can be enforced. But if they're not given a permit, there's no way to shut them down, which to me seems really crazy. So I would love if film can come to the next meeting and that we push for that bylaw to be updated so that we have some teeth, because right now we've got nothing.
Yeah, and I have been talking to them about some issues. The film bylaw, that is, it is outdated, and there's different tools that can be used. However, we can, why don't we take this conversation offline? I will invite them to come to our next meeting, and then I will send some outreach to you all for comments and questions you'd like them to cover in their discussion, and then we can open it up as well. Because I definitely agree with it, and my background prior to BIAs was the film office, so knowing it quite well, definitely want to keep the conversation and the lines of communication open, specific to that, and help educate everybody on the industry, because the levels of business are beyond what the province and frankly Canada has seen. So Hamilton is reaping the benefits, but also, things are moving so quickly that we want to make sure everyone has the information to be successful, and for you guys to engage your members and know what's going on.
And Counselor, sorry, your microphone is muted. Counselor? Counselor, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, absolutely, we can.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
Oh, Rachel?
I just wanted to do one quick follow-up one with regards to the grants, because I really don't want to let this go. Is there any way that, I know they had mentioned that there are reports done to identify the grants that are given out, but we're not, it's probably public somewhere on the city's website, but is there a way that we can either have Carlo come to our meeting to share those reports with us, or email us the reports so that we were informed of that?
So are you talking about the grants that have been issued?
Yes, yeah, any of the CIP financial incentives, any of those grants. Because I know,
Yeah,
like,
so I wrote down from the conversation, there is the quarterly report that's posted on the website. I will be sending that out to you. Oh, sorry. I will be sending that out to you now going forward. With respect to some of the more detailed questions, I mean, right now we just report what was approved. The questions surrounding ones that haven't been approved or have lapsed, I think that's a bit of a deeper conversation and privacy issues. But I know that that was brought up in our public meeting, in our conversations when we met with BIAs one-on-one, as well as today. So what is available, I will be sending to you. Beyond that, hopefully that will come out in our CIP review. And I think it was a great suggestion to have Phil and Carlo come back to subsequent meetings here. So as they are on my team, I'll be working with them to potentially come month to month and as the review goes on, or once they have some more robust points to discuss, we'll have them come back, absolutely. So there's a multiple prong approach, and that, I think that is some feedback, Rachel, that we have heard across our consultation, and some counselors have also asked for that. So I think we will see a process in place for that type of reporting, what we can do within privacy rules. But anything that is public now, I will make sure that I'm sending that link to you so that you at least have that information once it is available. And that is posted quarterly on the information updates page. So that's a great question, and we want to keep you guys informed. So absolutely, I'm going to make sure that that is on my list to distribute.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions? Okay, we're going to need a mover and a seconder to receive Julia's update.
Moved by Heidi, seconded by Rachel.
Thank you, and it's Carrie. I have to, okay, we're going to go to statement by members. And Angela, I had an appointment at 9:45, and they just called me, and they only have 15 minutes. So can I just...
Yeah, you can pass the chair to Rachel. You want to take the chair? And we're just going through statements by members.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Statement by members, and thank you very much, and have a good day. Thank you.
so I'm just off for screen if that's so no favoritism. I love you, Ollie. So we're going to start forwarding on Susan. It looks like it's stepped away, so starting the right way. Okay, we'll skip one and come back. Christina from concession.
Hi everyone. So not a lot to report. Got our grants in, just working on our AGM that's coming up next week. We're running a TV campaign with CHCH for holiday shopping, and we're working on a couple of, we're doing a virtual mural tour with Hamilton Rising, actually, and we're going to be loading that up to our website, and we're going to be kind of building off of that with different contests and different ways to engage the community and Hamilton to come out and view our murals and visit our BIA. Still waiting for the Dirty South to open their doors. They keep hitting road bumps that's stalling them, but I'm hoping in the next week at the most they should have their doors open, so we're really excited to welcome them. Also really happy to say that our vacancy rate has dropped back down. So even through the pandemic, we've managed to see some growth of businesses, which is exciting. Businesses figuring out a way to punch their way through it and make it work. So that's it for me.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm cheering. Awesome, thanks, Christina. Heidi from Lock Street next.
Hi everyone. We've got 2 businesses moving on to Lock, one panini place and one sushi place. You can probably tell which one I'm most excited about. We are getting electrical outlets installed on our poles just everything has taken so long with this, and it's really last minute. So I'm really quite terrified that they won't be up in time to put up the new Christmas stuff. We are printing like a life-size cutout of a Santa on our bench so that kids can actually sit on a Santa and take a photo, and it's going to look, I think, really cool. And we're working with our federal MP on the wage subsidy because for Lock Street, unfortunately, construction was far worse than a global pandemic. So we have many of our businesses not being able to qualify for the wage subsidy at all because their revenue is up from last year, but significantly down from the year before. So I don't know if we'll get anywhere with that. That was definitely a concern at the start of the wage subsidy, but because everybody was getting the 75%, it wasn't an issue. But now as we head into everybody applying for the last 2 periods, it's been not good for a lot of businesses on Lock. So anyway, that's it from Lock Street.
Awesome. Thanks, Heidi. And next I have Jennifer from Ancaster.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like we're all doing the same mix between AGMs and the prep. I will say we had canceled our events, but we were able to move forward on a virtual pumpkin stroll, which gave us, I think, another layer that we'll continue for our events, maybe expand them. To engage in a broader range of individuals for a lower cost. And it really cross-integrated our social media. We're doing the same, got inventive with Santa, and there'll be a virtual drive-through opportunity. Santa will be there for your car or on the hood of your car. So everybody's taking their vehicles. Unfortunately, we had to move it a little bit out of the BIA, but also utilizing one of our great networks here at the fairgrounds where our market was, so as a partnership, but allowing some promotion of our members through donations to our food drive here with ACS and little promo bags. So yeah, it's interesting. It's disappointing, but at the same time, adding other layers for us in. And that's it for Ancaster.
Thanks, Jennifer. Next, I have Lisa from Dundas.
Okay, hello everybody. I think I finally have the hang of unmuting on my phone because I'm in the program. So Dundas, well, I have to say I myself am looking very forward to the utility wraps getting back on track because ours get used to, our utility boxes get used for postering and they aren't looking very pretty no matter how hard you try and clean them or get the posters off properly. Our AGM is done, and it was a virtual AGM, as I'm sure most of you are doing. It was different from previous years. It was, yeah, but it's done, so it was good. For planning, I feel like we meet daily here in Dundas to discuss what's going on with numbers, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. So nothing's concrete yet for December for Dundas. And that's about it. Hopefully at least the weather will be nice. Maybe, fingers crossed. That's it from me.
Thanks, Lisa. Susie from International.
Just to wrap back around to the film office. So I had a pretty extensive conversation with Kim yesterday. Obviously, we have Disney in my BIA right now that's completely taken over my BIA, which was not expected. So there's been lots of lessons learned from that. So I did ask her and sort of warn her that we'll be requesting her to come to one of our future meetings and work on a basic checklist to start with, because I think that's important for us to all have for our BIA. So my issue is several times I get filming, but I don't know the questions I should necessarily be asking. And then suddenly they go up and they've taken over my whole BIA and it's a shock. So anyways, just trying to streamline communications a little bit better. So Kim is aware that we will be requesting her presence. So yeah, Disney has definitely been a massive undertaking in our area. They're supposedly finishing up this Friday night. So as much as it's been kind of fun, we're ready to move on from it. It's been almost a month in our BIA. They've put a mural in, which is great, and painted some buildings, which is great. but it has been extremely disruptive to parking on the street. So those are things we're going to have to work out in future. And also, I just made it very clear to Kim, like when there's a filming of this magnitude, we need some warning on that, because I had absolutely no warning on it other than a normal shoot, and I didn't know what I was dealing with. We currently have a contest for the month of November called Jingle All the Way to the Village. It's a simple contest. You can spend as minimum of $10 and enter to win a $1,000 prize pack of gift cards. So similar to the one we did in the spring. We are launching on Thursday a campaign to coincide with that and for Christmas shopping with our Santa that we use every year. So you'll see that video on social media and some social media photos to follow with that, just encouraging people to shop the village and also shop our website. Our AGM is complete. We had 25-minute AGM this year. It was the best AGM of my life, and I celebrated when I got home. I am making an appearance on CHCH on December 2nd to talk about our upcoming Christmas shopping season. So I'll be sure to not only talk about our BIA, but to push the message of shopping and supporting local this year more than ever. So that will be happening. We are running a contest in December specifically for our website. So everything will shift to the website, as we feel by then the weather may change and people may not want to come out as much. So there's an option for people to shop us. And unfortunately, we haven't had any new businesses come in throughout COVID. So it's looking a little bit grim in our area vacancy wise right now. I'm hoping that turns around, but the businesses that are there seem to be sustaining their business. I'm just worried about another lockdown, what that would do to them. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But I think that is it for us.
Awesome. Thanks, Susie. Tracy, you get to pick which BIA you want to do first.
Let's do Stony Creek. So I've been de-corn stalking the area, de-harvesting it. It's good. We put it all into compost, and some neighbors took some of the straw bales and stuff. Lots of sunshine like everybody else over the last few days. So we had a bit of activity, which is great. We have a couple of vacancies. Unfortunately, some longer term people like Doug Sutherland was one of his businesses, which we are all missing him very much down there. So it's hard to rent down there right now with a couple of vacancies, but they're beautiful properties. So we're hopeful. We have a number of people looking, which is positive. We're just getting Christmas ready, and we're trying to be very flexible on the changing climate and what's allowed and what's not allowed. And also we have our AGM coming up next week, and we're doing a hybrid model. So we'll see how that goes. We're trying to accommodate some older members that prefer to chat in person with social distancing measures obviously in place. Then in Westdale, it was patios and sunshine for the last several days, which is great. We had, again, big flurry of activity. Yesterday, I was de-corn stalking 1,600 corn stalks. They all got taken to composting, which is great. We're getting Christmas ready. We have our AGM this Wednesday, tomorrow night. We're again doing a hybrid model. Again, that's what our board wanted. And we're also trying to be very flexible for the Christmas and 2021 plans. And also we had a couple places that went up for rent, and 3 places that rented within days. So that's a very positive sign for Westdale. And that's it. Oh, and also we're just sort of for both places, and other BIs are going to join, and we're doing some shop local, support local marketing. Thanks.
Awesome. And Susan from Waterdown.
So I'll try and talk quickly. I'm sure you guys are all busy. We are planning. Our Christmas decorations are going up. Our AGM is in December. We are fortunate in that our vacancies are still pretty low. And when we have had vacancies, we've had a number of new businesses open during COVID. So, that's a positive sign for our area. 2 of the new businesses, we have our first dispensary opening next week. And as of yesterday, a sign went up on the office. Our immediate neighbor to the south will be a pot shop. So those are, I guess, a growing business in this time. We finished our Scarecrow Walk. It was actually really successful this year. We had a lot of very positive comments because there's not much for anybody else to do. So the families really appreciated having an outdoor activity that they could do throughout the month of October. And we are excited that we've launched a number of marketing programs. We've shifted some of our focus from our events to marketing programs. This is our welcome keychain. We've had this in the works for a while, but finally pulled it off. It's an introductory to our village and has a little map and some information, and then it has business cards from a number of participating businesses with an introductory offer on the back. So it's a sampling opportunity that we are distributing through our real estate agents in town. So if we have we're a growing population, and one of the biggest things we have is shifting behaviors to get people to, stop shopping in Burlington and GTA and points east, where a lot of them are coming from, to come all the way into downtown. So these are getting tied to bottles of wine or other little gifts that real estate agents give to their new buyers as they move into the community. So we've launched that. And we've also finally launched our weekend campaign, which is a multi-platform evergreen campaign. We have direct mail flyers we'll be sending out. We've got a whole stream of social media ones that we're doing, a banner program, we're in poster kiosks, and it's also in our ads. And the focus is on our entrepreneurs, but with a bit of a tongue-in-cheek line on all of them. So this one is, we can help you see things differently. So the tagline that goes with it doesn't always immediately conjure up what we're promoting, but it's just, we're trying to show that it's the personal attention and the diversity of offerings that people can get, and then they can kind of get everything that they need right here in Waterdown. So we're pretty excited that this is finally, all of our elements are in, and it's going out, and will continue on well into the new year. I think that's it for me right now.
Amazing. Thank you, Susan. For Barton Street, I'll start with a negative. Our AGM is December 8th, and the reason we're so late is because our financial statements we're still waiting for. My goodness, don't know if anybody else had issues with the audit, but wow, worst year ever for us. Sorry, there's my beef. Okay, positive. We did stuff for Halloween. We gave out bags. Breakaway, one of our businesses, donated over 100 bags to us. One of our other businesses, Cyanades, gave us free kids masks. And the Hamilton Public Library in Barton Street gave us free books. And then through donations, we were able to get candy. We, at no expense to us, pretty much, were able to give out really nice reusable bags filled with treats to kids on the street, which went really well on Halloween. And then we also, through St. Matthew's House, they were giving out free pumpkins the weekend before, which was really popular with the community too. So those are really great things that we got to do. Just prior to that, we did a big de-pave on one of our boulevards, which now looks stunning right at the corner of Gibson and Barton. These boulevards are obviously owned and have lots of issues. So we were very excited to be able to de-pave to make them a lot prettier. And then we have also, St. Matthews have recently kind of done a de-pave in their parking lot and their playground area. They've added 6 or so trees. It looks absolutely beautiful right in a prominent street. And then we've had 3 businesses open: Royal Flush, Vintage Store, Berlin, the best rates you will ever find, and Duke, which is a pasta pizza bar. So we're really excited for those. For Christmas, I'm just getting some feedback. Like, I don't know if anybody wants to move. Sorry, for Christmas, we're doing a virtual advent calendar. So we're each day going to be promoting one of our businesses where people can go shop. And if they go that day, they get a discount or something fun to do. So we're excited about that piece. And then back on, sorry, I'm speaking really fast. I know you guys are really busy. So the one bit I did want to bring up that's not really linked to this, but anyway, I'm just going to abuse my ability as chair, is, as you guys know, I'm on the infection prevention and control team, which is really intense. And I shared, or Julia shared last week, the link to this document, the COVID-19 response framework, keeping Ontario safe and open. And in there, it showed you all the requirements and the color code that we are. So we're yellow right now. And I just wanted to kind of bring it up, just so everybody is aware that we have our businesses have a lot of requirements on them right now. So, for example, They need to take all contact information for anybody that's seated for restaurants. They need to limit the volume of music. They need to have, all businesses need to have a safety plan that's available upon request that's specific to their business, plus everything else. So there's just a lot of things right now that our businesses are being asked of. So on this committee, there's doctors and such from Hamilton who are much more knowledgeable about all this stuff than I am. But if anybody wants them, they're more than welcome or more than interested in coming to one of our committee meetings to share some of this information. If you've got questions or if you've got concerns or comments, they've said that they're more than welcome to come and kind of get those comments or provide feedback or whatever you want. But I also just wanted to invite you, if you, as you look through those documents, if you've got questions or if you're receiving comments or concerns from your members with regards to sourcing PPE, what PPE do they need? Because that's also really confusing. Then let me know and I can forward those to the team so they're aware of those issues. Please and thank you. Awesome. Does anybody have any other comments, questions, feedback?
Sorry, quick question, Rachel. Sorry. On all that, is there like a quick one-page summary of everything you just said for all that they should be doing that you could share with us, or is that too simple?
Yeah, no, there's no one page. No, sorry. So, I mean, this isn't too bad if I'm honest with you. So this one document that I sent through, the reason I say no is because it depends on what type of business they are, right? So in this document, it separates it by the business and then it's a one page for that business. Does that make sense? So I would recommend basically going through here and then, so for example, like on this page, I should really probably just share my screen so you can see easier, but like restaurants, bars, food and drink, you just go to the yellow column, which is this one right here. And then you've got to do all these things plus all these things. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. So yeah, so it's probably the easiest is just to share that PDF with them. And in that link, there's actually a link to a safety plan. It's a Word document that businesses can modify to fit their business. So you're providing some of the tools that they need as well.
Perfect, thanks.
Pleasure. So seeing no other questions, unless people yell at me for something, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So sorry to interrupt, Rachel. Can we just have a motion to receive the statements by members?
Oh yeah.
Sorry. So Susan and Susie.
Thanks, Angela. You're so good at keeping us on track. And any opposed?
Nope.
Seeing none. Can we have a motion to adjourn again?
I'll motion.
Perfect. Jennifer, Lisa.
Thanks.
Wonderful. And any opposed to adjourning? We asked that?
No.
No. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for.
Yeah, Heidi, can you hear me?